It's November 29th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour, starting with the 2030 World Expo bid. The Saudi capital Riyadh will host the 2030 edition. South Korea's Prime Minister expressed regret over not being able to bring the expo to Busan. On the fifth day of hostage release, 12 more people held by Hamas were freed on Tuesday in exchange for 30 imprisoned Palestinians. Israel and Hamas are reportedly discussing another potential two-day ceasefire extension. All 41 workers trapped in a collapsed tunnel in India have been rescued after 17 days. None of the 41 are thought to have been injured. We begin over in Paris. South Korea's 2030 World Expo dreams have come to an end, with Busan losing out to Riyadh following a vote on Tuesday local time. Our Kim Jung-sil searched us off this morning.
Saudi Arabia's capital city Riyadh will host the 2030 World Expo. Riyadh won 119 votes in the first round of voting against Busan's 29 votes and 17 votes for Rome. With the Saudi capital claiming more than two-thirds of the votes from the 165 participating countries, the host was decided without the need for a runoff vote. The South Korean government solemnly accepted the result in the crushing defeat.
I sincerely apologize for not being able to return the support people have given us, and I feel a heavy sense of responsibility.
The Prime Minister added he will further develop the diplomatic assets gained from visiting more than 180 countries as part of the campaign to host a global mega event in South Korea's second-largest city of Busan. Representatives from the southern city were disappointed at the result, but said the city would actively consider making a bid for the World Expo event in 2035. Pundits had said Busan's bid was already a long shot considering Riyadh had begun a substantial marketing campaign a year ahead of South Korea, with Busan only joining the campaign in the summer of last year. Experts from Busan's campaign said the astronomical amount of capital available to Saudi enabled its delegation to offer direct and immediate aid solutions to voter countries, which might have helped the result. Even though South Korea tasted the bitterness of defeat, experts added the 17-month-long international bidding process would give know-how and create opportunities for future market development. The World Expo can take place for up to 6 months and has a legacy of creating economic benefits and jobs, with tens of millions of visitors from all around the world attending. The most recent World Expo took place in Dubai between October 2021 and March 2022. The next World Expo will take place in Osaka in 2025. Kim Jung-sil, Arirang News.
On the first day of the two-day ceasefire extension, Hamas has released 12 hostages, including 10 Israelis. And Israeli media reports say the two sides could agree to extend the pause by a further 2 days. Our Lee Seung-jae has the latest.
On the first day of the two-day extended ceasefire on Tuesday, Hamas released 12 more hostages, including 10 Israelis and 2 Thai nationals. According to the International Committee of the Red Cross, it successfully facilitated the release and transfer of 12 hostages out of Gaza via the Rafah crossing with Egypt. In exchange, 30 Palestinians were released from Israeli prisons, including 15 women and 15 minors. According to Israeli media outlets including Haaretz and the Times of Israel on Tuesday, Israel and Hamas could potentially agree to extend the ceasefire by a further 2 days to December 2nd. The reports indicate that the two sides could agree to an extension under the same conditions as the existing deal. Israeli authorities have not confirmed the report, but said that they're reviewing the matter. And amid raised hopes of a continued pause in fighting, Israel reported clashes between its military and the Palestinian militant group. According to the Israel Defense Forces, troops were injured in an attack by Hamas in northern Gaza. The IDF said 3 explosives were detonated in 2 locations in the northern Gaza Strip, which constitutes a violation of the ceasefire agreement. However, Hamas countered that the IDF violated the ceasefire agreement first, adding that the clash was a response to a clear violation of the ceasefire agreement. Meanwhile, small quantities of fuel have arrived in northern Gaza. According to the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs on Tuesday, other relief supplies supported by international organizations, including water, ready-to-eat food, and medical supplies, also began arriving in the northern part of the Gaza Strip. However, international relief organizations point out that the current supply of aid entering the Gaza Strip falls short of what is needed. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Washington has responded to North Korea's claims that its military spy satellite took photos of key U.S. government and military facilities by saying that there are plenty of images of the White House and the Pentagon already available online. Speaking to reporters on Tuesday, U.S. Department of Defense spokesperson Patrick Ryder shrugged off the North's claims. Earlier this week, Pyongyang said its spy satellite had taken images of facilities in Virginia, including Norfolk Naval Station and Newport News Shipyard. However, experts say they're skeptical of the quality of the images, as the regime has not yet released the photos. Ryder also reiterated the U.S. ironclad defense commitment to South Korea after Pyongyang began reinstalling guard posts and heavy weapons along the demilitarized zone. And over at the Joint Security Area, North Korean soldiers are now on duty armed with pistols. South Korea's defense chief ordered his military to retaliate decisively if the North makes any provocative actions. Shin Yeon has more.
Pyongyang is reportedly arming its soldiers who are deployed at Panmunjom Joint Security Area. Yonhap News reported on Tuesday, citing multiple South Korean and American military sources, that since the latter half of last week, North Korean soldiers have been carrying sidearms while on duty. South Korean soldiers in the area remain unarmed. The United Nations Command, which is in charge of the Joint Security Area, is reportedly weighing options while closely monitoring Pyongyang's moves. Defense Minister Shin Won-sik strongly condemned the North on Tuesday afternoon, saying any careless maneuver that undermines peace is the beginning of ruin. According to the Ministry of National Defense, Shin ordered the military to retaliate decisively if the enemy makes any provocative moves. The JSA is where the historic Panmunjom Declaration between then South Korean President Moon Jae-in and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un was unveiled in 2018. To fully implement the declaration, the two sides later reached an inter-Korean military agreement this same year to reduce tension on both sides of the military demarcation line as well as in the joint security area. Since the agreement, soldiers of both sides in Panmunjom went unarmed while on duty. If the North persists in arming its troops in the JSA, it's possible that South Korean soldiers will be ordered to carry firearms.
Our military will continue to closely monitor North Korean moves and take necessary countermeasures.
Pyongyang's decision to arm its soldiers at the JSA came after it began rebuilding guard posts along the inter-Korean border starting late last week and reportedly arming them with heavier weapons. The regime has been actively ramping up its military options after it virtually terminated the inter-Korean military agreement following the South Korean government's decision to partially suspend a clause relating to aerial reconnaissance due to North Korea's launch of a spy satellite. Shin Yeon, Arirang News.
So North Korean guards at the Joint Security Area at Panmunjom are now armed with pistols, terminating an inter-Korean deal to demilitarize the area. Now, this is another step taken by the North after its declaration to scrap the 2018 inter-Korean military agreement. For more, we're joined by Bruce Klinger this morning. Welcome back to the program.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So, like I said, North Korean soldiers have reportedly been unshipped with pistols on them since late last week. What are the North's intentions?
Well, they're showing their displeasure with Seoul partially suspending one portion of the comprehensive military agreement rather than just acquiescing to North Korea's launch of a satellite, which is yet another violation of numerous UN resolutions. So South Korea, I thought, took a very minimalist step by suspending one clause of that agreement, and in order to resume surveillance and reconnaissance activities to better identify any potential North Korean military moves along the DMZ. And then North Korea responded to that by abrogating the entire agreement. So we're really back to the 2018 situation. It's likely both Koreas will now be armed along the DMZ, but rather than a major escalation in tensions, it's really just returning us back to 2018.
I see. And this is not it. North Korea is also restoring its frontline post at the inter-Korean border. Now, Deputy Principal National Security Advisor Kim Tae-yo said yesterday that South Korean Army plans to do the same. What other steps do you think Seoul can actually take in response to the North's moves?
Well, I think, as Seoul was saying initially after the satellite launch, they will resume reconnaissance and surveillance activities along the DMZ. And also, now that North Korea has abrogated the agreement, South Korea can resume training activity that had been curtailed by the agreement. Some training areas in the northern area of South Korea could no longer be used. And then in one example, the South Korean artillery on Yongpyeong-do could not do in-place live-fire artillery exercise. They had to move to the peninsula, whereas the North Korean 4th Corps artillery, which attacked Yongpyeong-do in 2010, could remain in place and do live-fire artillery. So now both sides will be able to resume military activity, as well as South Korea resuming reconnaissance activity.
Sure, though it started with the North spy satellite launch and South Korea's partial suspension of the 2018 inter-Korean military agreement and a return of weapons at the DMZ. How will the recent tit-for-tat actions taken by the two Koreas actually play out then?
Well, with both Koreas going back to rearming along the DMZ, we'll have a balance there. And then what will continue to happen is North Korea will continue to expand, improve, augment its military capabilities, as it's been doing for years or decades. So we will see, as Kim Jong-un has promised, more satellite launches. They want to have more satellites in orbit to expand their surveillance activities. And then, it's a sure bet that they're going to continue missile launches of whatever range. And then Washington and Seoul have been saying since last year that they believe North Korea will do a 7th nuclear test at some point. And that's most likely to be a smaller new generation of tactical nuclear weapons for battlefield use. And North Korea has been talking about that for the last 2 years.
Definitely. We also have to talk about the activities of the North spy satellite. Now, what North Korea is saying that its Manligyang-1 military reconnaissance satellite took pictures of the White House and the Pentagon. Now, what's the point of saying that it took photos of these sites without actually making them public? Is it because of the security situations? What is it?
Well, I think on the first hand, they're bragging about another accomplishment. It's their first successful military reconnaissance satellite, but they don't want to perhaps reveal the capabilities of their satellite. And they've said that it's still it's an initial kind of implementation of the satellite's capabilities. So we'll have to see if they do release satellite imagery at some point, how good the quality is. It's certainly not going to be as good as other government satellites, and perhaps even not as good as some commercially available imagery. But I spent a dozen years as a CIA imagery analyst, and there's a lot of things you can do with even low-resolution imagery. You may need high-resolution imagery for identifying variants of weapons or very technical issues. But if you just want to find out if a military unit is in garrison or if it's out in a training area or whether it's preparing to invade, you can do that with low-quality imagery.
So for much skepticism for high-quality photos for now, South Korea is also set to launch its first military reconnaissance satellite on a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket from the U.S. Vandenberg Space Force Base in California later this week on Saturday, Korea time. Now, what makes South Korean one different from the one that the North launched?
Well, first of all, it's not a violation of UN resolutions. So nations are allowed to do satellite launches except for North Korea, which 11 UN resolutions preclude any kind of launch using what's called ballistic missile technology, which includes satellite launches or space launch vehicles, regardless of whether they claim it's for civilian purposes. So a South Korean launch would not be a violation of UN resolutions. And it's also likely to be more capable. The satellite is probably have a lower resolution, which is a higher quality, lower meter resolution than the North Korean. So it'd be much more capable in identifying and monitoring and targeting military targets.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. You have a great evening.
Thank you very much.
With Korean webtoons, dramas, and movies gaining more popularity around the world, the content industry seeks to expand further by bringing in business opportunities and more talent through a special event. Our An Sung-jin takes us to Content Business Week.
Itaewon Class, All of Us Are Dead, The Uncanny Counter. All began life as webtoons before being successfully transformed into well-known K-dramas. As South Korea continues to make copyrighted works into different forms of visual entertainment, the country's exports of the content industry hit an all-time high of $12.4 billion in 2021. Aligning with the government's effort to create economic value for the industry by increasing its exports, the Ministry of Culture, Sports and Tourism, together with the Korea Creative Content Agency, organized the second annual Content Business Week to target both domestic and overseas markets.
Content Business Week is a chance for Korean firms creating and working with intellectual property to boost their business through B2B and B2C events.
The three-day event that started on the 28th in Seoul links three different events: the Content IP Market, Licensing Con, and 2023 Webtoon Job Festa, each designed to expand intellectual property business among various manufacturing, communications, and services companies.
We will develop our intellectual property talent so this market can grow not only in Korea, but also as a global content IP market, becoming a place where collaboration between various industries can be made. It'll be a festival for people all over the world.
The content IP market focuses on the interaction between content companies, service providers, and buyers to commercialize original intellectual property such as webtoons and various story characters.
Well, it's not only about Korean webtoons, but for example, about maybe Asian comics. So I really like their graphics and also storytelling. Well, it's not about every comics, so that's why I need to take a look by myself and to choose the story and to choose the comics carefully, so I can provide the best for the readers.
The Webtoon Job Festa connects recruiters and job seekers in the comics field to promote the growth and development of the industry. This event garnered attention from recruiters from nearly 80 companies. As K-content continues to gain popularity both at home and abroad, the government pledged to further discover and develop intellectual property content to create greater value for it. Han Sung-jin, Arirang News.
Rural areas are facing rapid aging and worker shortages in agricultural activities. But autonomous machinery is replacing manual labor. Our Chung Eun-ju has the details.
The Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs organized a startup contest last October, which was participated in by 568 startup teams with promising technologies in the field of agriculture and food. Among the top 10 teams that reached the finals, a venture company garnered attention in the field of autonomous agricultural machinery. This company presented a solution that can transform traditional agricultural equipment into autonomous machinery by simply attaching an artificial intelligence kit with cameras and GPS sensors. Their technology is proficient at maneuvering not only rectangular or polygonal farmland, but also curved sections with an accuracy range of within 3 centimeters. The greatest advantage of the technology is that it can be applied to various agricultural machines, such as tractors, rice transplanters, and combine harvesters. Test results showed a 50% reduction in labor and a 32% reduction in working hours when using the artificial intelligence kit.
What sets us apart is that our product can not only move forward, but also reverse and perform turns. Ultimately, it can autonomously drive across the entire farmland without any manual intervention.
The company has set an ambitious goal to make the owners of 40,000 of the 370,000 agricultural machines around the country customers within the next 2 years. Rural administrators are planning to expand the adoption of the kits as anyone with basic digital literacy can use the new technology.
To support young companies that aim to commercialize such initiatives and expand their funding and market opportunities, the Rural Development Administration plans to provide funding for business development.
Venture technologies are injecting new vitality into rural areas, which are struggling with an aging population, a shortage of workers, and rising labor costs. 정은주, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Kim Si-young. We now turn over to stories from around the world. We begin in India, where all 41 construction workers who were trapped in a tunnel for 17 days have been rescued. They're receiving medical checks, but no injuries have been reported yet. After over 2 weeks of difficulties, each of the workers was extracted one at a time through a pipe 90 centimeters in diameter, which was inserted through the rubble. The 41 men had been trapped in the Silkyara tunnel in northern India's Uttarakhand state after a landslide on November 12th blocked the entrance with debris. The trapped workers survived from supplies of oxygen, medicine, food and water, which were fed through the pipes into the tunnel. Now, the wife of Ukraine's military intelligence chief has been reportedly poisoned with heavy metals. A Ukrainian military spokesperson said that Mariana Budanova, the wife of Ukraine's spy chief Lieutenant General Kirilo Budanov, is now being treated in hospital after failing ill. The spokesperson confirmed that several other intelligence agency employees also showed mild symptoms of heavy metals poisoning. 30-year-old Budanova had been feeling ill for a prolonged period of time, and local sources say she was poisoned through her food. Her husband, Budanov, who leads the main directorate of intelligence of the Ukrainian military, has been highly involved with clandestine operations against Russian forces throughout the war. No statements were made regarding whether Russia was involved in the poisoning. Moving on, Finland is closing all its road borders with Russia in an attempt to halt a surge of asylum seekers. The Finnish government announced on Tuesday it would close its last road crossing, located in the Arctic Circle, on Thursday night for 2 weeks. It had already recently closed its other 7 road crossings with Russia. 1 rail crossing for freight only will remain open. Helsinki has accused Moscow of deliberately aiding migrants from Morocco, Pakistan and Syria crossing into Finland in retaliation for Finland's closer cooperation with the US and joining of NATO. The Finnish border guard said that in November some 900 asylum seekers surged into Finland via Russia, an increase from an average of less than 1 per day previously. Now moving on to the last story of the day. A passenger jet powered by 100% sustainable aviation fuel has successfully completed a transatlantic flight. The Virgin Atlantic flight flew from London's Heathrow Airport to New York's JFK on Tuesday, using fuel made from non-petroleum feedstocks mixed with fuel made from waste corn. This is the first time any commercial airline has completed a long-haul flight running on 100% sustainable aviation fuel. The Boeing 787 didn't carry any fee-paying passengers, but Virgin Atlantic founder Richard Branson and UK Transport Secretary Mark Harper were on board. The fuel is hoped to lower the aviation industry's carbon footprint.
Good morning. It's freezing outside. It feels like almost -8 degrees Celsius in the capital. And most parts are seeing morning temperatures that are 2 to 5 degrees lower than the same time yesterday, with cold wave alerts issued in parts of Gangwon-do and Gyeongsang-pukdo provinces. Meanwhile, a dry weather advisory remains in place for East Coast regions, so please take precautionary measures against wildfire. Light wet clouds could be formed in the west, dropping a mix of rain and snow to the west side of the country today. Flurries could be less than 1 centimeter, but freezing temperatures could make roads icy, so please stay safe out there. Seoul and Chuncheon see a high of 3 degrees, Daegu at 7, but much warmer on Jeju Island, topping out at 15 degrees. And there will be more clouds than sunshine today. Tomorrow morning, we'll see a low of -8 degrees in the capital, and we'll have to wait until Saturday afternoon to dress a bit lighter. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
We thank you for watching New Day at Arirang. We'll be back tomorrow for Thursday's edition at the same time, 9 a.m. Korea time.